Well, I'm Lisa Petrides. I am president and founder of ISKME, and we are a nonprofit research institute based in Half Moon Bay, California. Our work really looks at the whole education sector and how people are using information and knowledge and how we can improve that to really accelerate the learning that happens, both in schools, informally, and for the self-learner.
I'm Amy Godwin. I'm program director of our project called OER Commons, which has been honored by the laureates. And that's a teaching and learning network online that brings together thousands of resources from collections all over the world and really brings new qualities of openness to education, where we want to bring teachers and learners as active participants and contributors to resources using Web 2.0 features, social networking, and talking about what really works in schools and in classrooms around the world. We point to them, and then ISKME has done a research project to create an OER case study to develop tools and to pass on the knowledge of how these have been created so that others could benefit from that.
Great. And not only do we point to them, but by pointing to them and allow teachers and other educators to more easily find them, they can actually come to the site, they can rate and review these resources, they could add to them, they could add their own teaching and pedagogy experience onto the materials as well. So while the actual resource is hosted through them, there's a lot of value that can added by other users really across the globe. So what we do is we look for projects that are working on creating open education resources really globally. And there's a project that we've been working with now over the last year. In South Africa, a physics graduate student was at a conference for kids, showing them how a wave was made and how it worked, and really explaining the physics behind that. And afterwards, the kids came up to him and they said, "Can you write that down for us? We've never learned that before. We don't have that in any textbook. We don't even have a science textbook. We would love to really understand what you're doing, and maybe our teachers could use that as a resource." These are kids from townships in South Africa, don't have textbooks, much less papers and pencils to do this work with. I think didn't they go pull their money?
They pulled their money to be able to buy a notebook of blank paper and a pen, so they could together take the notes from this conference.
So Mark went back to Cape Town to the university. He got a bunch of his colleagues together and he said, let's make some textbooks that are free and openly accessible, really basing them on the whole open source movement, very volunteer centric, kind of a Wikipedia model where they got volunteers together, both teachers and other practitioners and university professors, and over a period of time have put together some really amazing textbooks that are completely free and accessible to anybody in the world. And I think the beauty of the story is now that the Ministry of Education in South Africa is actually going to adopt these as the official curriculum for high schools in South Africa. So for the first time, they're going to actually have a really amazing science curriculum that they actually have materials and textbooks to teach.
And this is a really strong example of how open educational resources, or OER, is really changing how teachers and then by extension students can get their hands into the content and make it customized for a particular region, particular country, change existing resources to fit curriculum standards that might be local or cultural appropriateness. And this is a very strong example that for our work that we point to those resources. Now they're not just available in South Africa, anyone from around the world can find them, and it can serve as a model for creating a whole free textbook model for others to be able to create something collaboratively and pass it on.
Yeah.
We point to them, and then ISKME has done a research project to create an OER case study to develop tools and to pass on the knowledge of how these have been created so that others could benefit from that.
Great.
And not only do we point to them, but by pointing to them and allow teachers and other educators to more easily find them, they can actually come to the site, they can rate and review these resources, they could add to them, they could add their own teaching and pedagogy experience onto the materials as well. So while the actual resource is hosted through them, there's a lot of value that can added by other users really across the globe.
We hope that some of the challenges that we're looking at today, we've transcended them. For instance, we know that textbooks are a barrier for even college students in the United States to continue to go to college. That's one of the greatest expenses they have. Public schools in the United States are still in a state of deprivation. We're hoping that these day-to-day challenges, we're beyond that, so we can really start to build a different way of collaborating and being able to have access.
And when you think about it, you know, schools of today are really built on this industrial age model, right? How do we build up a school where kids can be and they can learn so when they're not farming? And instead, what I think we're going to see 10 years from now is a really vibrant ecosystem, if you will, of not only curriculum creators and publishers creating curriculum, but the actual professionals of our schools, our teachers, students helping them, students peer-to-peer learning among students as well as among professionals, really bringing a whole vibrancy and a dynamicness into curriculum, into teaching and learning. So I think 10 years we're saying, you know, we're really going to see a revolution in learning, both in formal and informal education.
You have a lot of optimism.
We do. You have to be in this business.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this cultural trend of do-it-yourself extend out of the internet and open source to a lot of other new areas, and we're hoping that education is going to be uplifted in that process.
We've been doing a lot of international travel lately because this work is just, you know, spreading like wildfire. We were in Cape Town recently and Dubrovnik early in the summer, and what we're seeing that I think is most exciting, you know, we're very fortunate. We've had funding from the Hewlett Foundation. We're here as Westerners, you know, at least with projects that are funded. We're seeing people all over the world actually create their own content just because they see a need.
Yeah.
And then they're bootstrapping it, they're figuring out how to do it, they're figuring out how to get it published, you know, how to get it printed and disseminated. There's people doing amazing things just because they can today.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the real excitement of what we're seeing in this sort of roll up your sleeve and do it yourself mentality.